Is the UK's North Sea in a new era? The UK's new Prime Minister, Liz Truss, has come down on the side of the oil and gas industry and says that she wants to turn the UK into a net energy exporter by 2040. This is possible, and how will it benefit those companies in the North Sea? One company that will likely benefit is Orcadian Energy, which has projects off the Aberdeen coast. Steve Brown is Chief Executive, and he joins us now on the line. Steve, good to talk to you. Thanks indeed for your time. I want to start, if I can, with your views on how you see the environment and how it's changed over the last few weeks.
Delighted to see you, Jeremy, and absolutely, we're in momentous times. The transition in the attitude of the government towards North Sea oil and gas investment is remarkable to behold. You know, we listed our company in July last year in the run-up to COP21, and people weren't thinking that there would be many new oil and gas projects in the North Sea. But the government has absolutely woken up to the importance of energy. And the other thing is they've realized that transition means what it says on the tin. It doesn't mean investment in oil and gas grinding to a shuddering halt. And people have recognized we need to keep investing in oil and gas to get through a transition.
And this is going to cost money, of course. Some of the larger players in the North Sea have exited. Was that premature, do you think? Or do you think the level of business that is out there is only really suitable for small companies that can get that margin difference that it makes in putting the investment in?
Maybe they left a little too soon, but maybe not. You know, it's actually good for the basin as a whole to have new companies coming in, new companies being formed, new ideas coming to the basin, and a recycling of who the operators are does actually help. We have a new idea for our field. Our idea is to use polymer to sweep the oil out more effectively. It's a really good way to get a better recovery from the oil field. And while the older companies could have done that, they didn't. So it is good to get new companies coming in with new ideas.
Yes, I was going to ask about that, actually. Of course, a lot of oil has flowed through the North Sea pipe since it first started pumping in any meaningful way back in the 1970s, early 80s and so forth.
Yeah, about 30 billion barrels.
That's a lot of
Gas
oil.
on top of that, but 30 billion of oil.
Let's hope that new technology can continue that flow. I think, because you're right, obviously new technology is key to this, I guess, as much as anything else, as well as the tax environment, which brings in new investment opportunities. How do you talked there a little bit about the new technologies you're using, and of course new technologies help us all the time, not just in the pumping out of the field, but the way in which we consume it as well.
Yeah.
Give some more detail about the difference in the environment here, and how you're going to use this polymer way of scraping through oil. How are you doing this? And is this a new technology, or is it just the fact that prices have risen to a point where you're able to engage with more expensive ways of getting it out of the ground?
Well, it's not a new technology. It's been around for 40 odd years. It's been used successfully in hundreds of projects around the world, in Alberta, in India, and actually in the North Sea. So there is a company producing a viscous oil field quite like ours in the North Sea using polymer flood. And what polymer does for you, it's a really simple technology. All it involves is thickening the water. And the thicker water means you get the oil out quicker and you get more of it. And that has an added benefit of significantly reducing the emissions in the production process. So, the industry has to be open to taking on new technologies, especially simple ones like polymer flooding.
Are you seeing, amongst your peers, are you seeing more money now come into the North Sea? Is this really an opportunity for us to do what the government says by being a net energy exporter by 2040? That sounds to me to be a little bit of a pipe dream. Do you think it's a reality?
Well, I think it's possible. It takes two things. It takes a massive investment in floating offshore wind, and that will generate lots of energy, maybe not always when you need it. So you need to think that piece through. but it'll also take a revitalization of North Sea oil and gas production. And actually, we have more scope to do that with oil than we have gas. There's more reserves of oil than there are of gas. And the government has put a massive carrot in front of the oil producing companies in the North Sea. Our project is roughly $1 billion to get to first oil. Any of those companies can save on their tax bill somewhere between $450 and $750 million by investing in our project. So, that's a huge incentive to take on a new project. And it's a big shift for the industry. The industry had kind of got into a rut of, we're running the basin down. There were some of the majors left, some stayed, but they were just working through the assets they have. The companies that were coming in were private equity financed. They love to buy production. They love to do financial engineering. Development projects, not quite so much. But now there's such a massive tax advantage for them in doing development projects. I see a whole wave of new projects for the North Sea.
That's an interesting point, actually. And I noticed, actually, the look of glee in your face when I opened the interview with that first question about the incentives the government's putting in front of you. Just to be honest, the pilot fields which you're pushing ahead with, were they economically viable without the tax incentives?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But we didn't really have a coterie of companies that wanted to invest in new projects. The private equity companies wanted to buy production from exiting majors, leverage it, do financial engineering, and make a great return. I don't knock the strategy. It was a fantastic strategy, especially in a rising price environment. It's been a fantastic strategy for them. But what they need to do now is actually shift tack. The tax because of tax, they need to shift tack. The tax incentives are huge, so they need to find projects to invest in. And actually, when you look at the list of projects, it's not that long. Pilot sits in the top 5 projects in the North Sea, according to Woodmac.
Do you see that potentially changing? Do you see now more companies coming in, more exploration, and potentially more oil being established? Is there the scope, do you think, for more oil still to come on that we don't know about?
There's always scope for more that we don't know about. There's even scope for some we do know about. So, pilot is a viscous oil field. That means, it's a bit harder to flow. And when I talk to people about viscosity, I use obscure units like centipoise, and then people don't know what I'm talking about. But roughly speaking, our oil is somewhere between olive oil and engine oil. And engine oil is that bit more viscous than olive oil. So we have that range of viscosity. But actually, over the years, we've discovered an awful lot of this viscous oil in the North Sea. So we keep track of it. There's about 8 billion barrels discovered in the North Sea. And with polymer flooding, you can recover about 40% of that. So that's over 3 billion barrels extra to come, which is actually almost as much as we expect to get from the existing fields that are out there producing now.
Yeah.
So there are, that's an example of how technology can help us increase the pie.
I've got your website open in front of me now, where you've detailed where your projects are, what they are, and so forth, the names. Just quickly run through what you've got, where you are, and what you need to do in order to try and do your part in meeting that energy goal for the new government.
Absolutely. So our core assets are sitting about 150 kilometres due east of Aberdeen, and the core asset out of that core of assets is the pilot field. And that's the project that we've got pretty much ready to go. We've got 79 million barrels of 2P reserves in pilot. And sitting around it, we've got roughly the same volume again in discoveries that would follow on from the pilot field: Elkey, Narwhal, Blakeney, so on and so forth. And the key thing with our pilot project is that we're almost ready to invest in. It's almost ready to go. We've actually just been out to the market looking for well service companies, looking for FPSO providers, and we're planning to select the key contracting partners to work with us on the project. And when we do that, we're going to go into what I call a project simplification exercise to absolutely optimize the project so that we can make it 100% ready to invest in whenever one of the other players in the North Sea wants to invest in a project.
When we interviewed you 6 or 7 months ago, you were saying then you were aiming for a clean and green oil production. One of the other things we haven't spoken about yet is the fact that in this new era, we have a new set of rules, don't we, in mining and in drilling, all the commodity space, in order to comply with the ESG strategy. Look, let's face it, we all need to see. And this is an extra layer of, I won't say complication on your work, but you obviously have to take into account the new ways of working. Does this change things very much for the North Sea?
Well, yes. People have to think about the emissions that are going to be involved in their production process. And the best time to think about how to optimize those emissions is before you've built anything. So we actually went through an exercise last year, and we continued working on it to drive down the emissions as low as we possibly could. So one of the key elements in that is using polymer. So if you're trying to produce a viscous oil with a water flood, you have to cycle many pore volumes of water around the reservoir many times to get a decent recovery factor. With polymer, it's much fewer pore volumes of water. That roughly halves emissions per barrel. We've then optimized process heat management and other power generation systems and halved emissions again. And then we've included a floating wind turbine in our plan and halved emissions again. So we expect our emissions per barrel to be around about 2.6 kilograms of CO2 per barrel. And the North Sea average is 20. So any operator that's sitting out there with emissions of 20 or 30 or 40 or even 50 kilograms of CO2 per barrel, by farming into our project, they can average down their emissions really substantially. And we think it's a key element of our development plan that will be attractive to other companies.
Let's talk a little bit about your share price. I know, again, going back to our last interview, we did discuss this. So bring up a share price chart, which you know very well. We've seen from the recent lows that we saw at the back end of July, where we were sub 30 pence. Here we are now at 36. Clearly, there's been a lot of interest in your business and others in the North Sea. How much further up is there to go to meet what you would regard as a fair value for the business, bearing in mind what you've been talking about, where you are geographically as well as in terms of progress and the outlook for drilling successfully for oil to flow back into this new oil strategy?
That's a really good question, and I'd thought about it before you asked it to me. So that's even better. I don't know if you noticed, Rehobold announced that the Victory gas field is being sold to a major it's in the west of Shetland area, and they're selling that for $1.40 for the 2C resources in Victory, $1.40 per barrel. We actually have 156 million barrels of 2P and 2C resources. And if someone paid us $1.40 a barrel, that would be 8 times our market cap. Right.
That puts it into some sort of context for us, and so clearly, again, going back to the share price, you clearly think there's a discount.
There's some running room.
Yeah, exactly. There's some running room. Okay, let me just quickly end up with the sort of normal question as to how we get to where you want to be in the time scale you want to be in at, and what you have to do. What should we be looking out for to check you're on target?
Well, pretty soon we'll be coming out with some announcements around our market engagement exercise with FPSO contractors and well service contractors. And also we're gearing up for the 33rd round. So that's one of the things that will be announced. I believe it will be announced next week after the Queen's funeral. And we've got some ideas around our core assets. We plan to build on our existing partnerships. And actually, we've got some new ideas. but we're going to keep those to ourselves for now.
Well, we look forward to hearing more about those. Maybe get you back on, Steve, to talk about them when we know more about what it is you're trying to do. But in the meantime, thank you so much indeed for updating us on Orcadian and also government policy.
Jolly good. Very nice to talk to you, Jeremy.
Steve, that's great. Steve Brown, he's the Chief Executive of Orcadian Energy.